Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and today on another episode of Pokke's Classroom, we are essentially going to be going through a brand new updated beginner's guide as new players flock into honkaistarrail's version 2.1. As you guys have seen from the live stream, we do have an insane amount of benefits to new players, as well as the fact that doctor ratio is still free, but only up until the end of version 2.1. So this is a pretty good opportunity to pretty much refresh my previous beginner's guide, and without further ado, let's get into today's content. Subscribe! We are currently having a Sparkle banner as of this very moment, and after Sparkle banner at the 27th of March, we're going to be getting Archron's banner provided together with Luocha, Aventurine, and Jingliu, right? So all of these 5 stars above, they are excellent beginner options, right? They help in the early game, they're kind of relevant in the late game, and you can pretty much use any of these units to clear the end game content, right? So excellent choices for beginners. We do have a massive beginner benefits for players that are just starting, because we do have 30 free pulls due to honkaistarrail's anniversary, 300% relic drops, which will make our life a lot easier, especially if you start now, because I'll be explaining this a little bit later on, but essentially you only reach the maximum relic farming efficiency at level 60 and above, right? 60 or 65. So you don't really want to enter into this game and not experience the full benefits of this 300% relic drop, right? You want to try to build your account a little bit more, build up your Trailblazer level so they can get more efficiency, right? And we do have our free doctor ratio, which is one of our strongest 5-star imaginary DPS we have the game in right now, as well as a 4-star selector that has been shown in the live trailer, right? And we also have right before the monthly reset, because every single month we do have the monthly shop reset, we have all the kind of stuff, as well as the top-up bonus refresh that pretty much happens once a year. This is more prevalent from the whale players. My point is, right now, you are in a very good position to start honkaistarrail. And where else to start honkaistarrail than to get a pretty good guide to know exactly what you're doing to take your account to the next level, right? That this changes everything, right? So now, summarized key benefits can be seen over here. You can see from the 1-year anniversary, we do at 20 special passes, as well as 1,600 stellar jades, which is equivalent to 30 pools, as well as the Monopoly event, top-up bonus, right? Planar issue 300% and relic 300%. And we do get the 4-star selector featuring Gallagher, Misha, Xueyi, Hanya, Gwen Ifen, Luca, Lynx, and Yukong, as well as our free doctor ratio, which lasts only until the end of version 2.1, right? So if this goes away, then it goes away. The only reason why we're getting a free doctor ratio is because of honkaistarrail winning 3 awards, right? And this is unlikely going to be coming back, so do start honkaistarrail before doctor ratio goes away. Top 10 tips. So the number 1 most important tip is shouldn't chase meta. Now, some units, they might be easier to raise than other units, right? Some units, they might do more damage, some units might be a little bit more comfortable, but at the end of the day, every single unit in honkaistarrail, they can defeat the endgame. If you look up any tier list, any of those units can accomplish the absolute peak highest achievement in honkaistarrail, which is defeating the endgame, right? As long as you can beat Memory of Chaos, as long as you can beat Pure Fusion, you can beat Golden Gear, Storm Disaster, then it really doesn't matter. And the truth is, every single one of the units can do those. It just depends on how long it takes for you to get there, but you're definitely gonna be able to get there. And as with all gacha games, waifus above meta, right? Battle Pass and monthly, but this is a little bit for if you go and think of spending money on this game. They are the absolute best value for light spenders, especially because the top-up bonus, especially after the first bonus is expired, you've used it, then it gets considerably more expensive if you want to top up your honkaistarrail. Whereas the Battle Pass and monthly pass, they give you a shit ton of rewards and they give you a shit ton of value, a bang for your buck. So this is for spending players, light spenders, right? And then for the gacha banners, we do have the beginner banner, limited banner. The limited beginner banner is gone, but it's basically a free 50 pools at 20% discounted rate. We have a Lightcone banner as well as the reruns, right? So the gist of it is beginner banner first, which is you do the pools at a 20% discount, followed by limited banner, followed by Lightcone banner, followed by standard banner. Do not ever use your stellar jades on standard banner. Like, never ever use your standard jades on standard banner, no matter what it costs, especially if you're free to play or if you're a light spender. If you're a whale, then honestly it doesn't really matter that much, right? So beginner banner has the highest priority because you are guaranteed a 5-star after 50 pools, right? At most you take 50 pools, and if you get a 5-star early, you can technically just like move on to the remaining stuff, because there's no like double 5-star. The moment you get a 5-star, you're done. And limited banner, they tend to have a little bit more of a priority than the Lightcone banners, unless you absolutely devastatingly need a Lightcone and just refuse to pull for a limited banner, then yeah, but this is very niche situations. Most of the time, you pull for the limited unit first, and then you pull for that selected Lightcone, just like how maybe some of you guys play Genshin Impact, is how it works as well, right? So that's gonna be that. Now, for the 4th tip, avoid rushing to the end game. So for Golden Hall and Storm Disaster, as well as Golden Gears, they are permanent content, right? So all the stuff, you get them today, you get them 1 year later, is exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever. Memory of Chaos, now although Memory of Chaos as well as Pure Fiction, they do have jades that technically expire if you don't claim them within the rotation. But nowadays, the rotation has been bumped up, right? It's even longer per rotation now compared to the previous times. Even if it refreshes, it is very, very negligible, right? It is not worth it to just rush to the end game just to try and get the jades, right? So do take your time. There's absolutely no rush, and just take your time. Don't rush to the end game because you're just gonna ruin your account, right? Fifth tip, tracers above relics in the early game. This is ultimately gonna be a massive, massive stamina sink. Whether you want to spend your stamina on tracers, whether you want to spend your stamina on relics, they're kind of the same. But the difference is for tracers, they are guaranteed upgrades, right? Your characters at level 1 trace compared to level 8 trace is worlds apart. Not to mention your big 3 ascension nodes as well as all the passive upgrades. They are absolutely guaranteed benefits that can make your character stronger. Whereas for your relics, it is not guaranteed, right? Your main stat is randomized, your substats are randomized. For example, if you're a new player, if you spend 10,000 stamina on relics and 10,000 stamina on tracers, the person spending 10,000 stamina on tracers is probably gonna get a much better built unit compared to somebody that spent 10,000 stamina on relics, because chances are they might not have gotten insanely good relics, because 10,000 stamina, it might seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's honestly not that much, right? So that's basically that, right? Guarantee versus possible returns. And then 6th tip, assignments and daily check-in. So 3 of the 4, you see this over here, Nameless Lord, Akashi Records, as well as the Invisible Hand, they absolutely have to be used as your daily assignments, right? Because these materials, you can't get them under normal means, and all the other materials is not that important, right? These materials, they basically has a higher priority when it comes to upgrade your ship, because every single time you want to upgrade unit, you need experience. Every time you want to upgrade a Lightcone, you need this. And then for your credits, you need this, right? And if you don't farm Overworld, so for example, if you don't really farm like your similar universe, you don't farm your Overworld, you don't farm the mobs, you're definitely gonna run out of this for sure. Way more than any of the other things. So this tree should be your absolute highest priority every single day. And then your last slot, it doesn't really matter. Personally, especially if you're going to be putting for Archon, I would advise you guys farming this specific one that lets you get a combination to craft this item that recovers 2 technique points. It comes together. So that's what I've been personally doing. So that's going to be that. And then lastly, the HoloLab external check-in, you do get some daily upgrades, right? So if you haven't downloaded the HoloLab app, do make sure to get it updated. And then for our 7th tip, basic team building, very, very I'll be explaining this a little bit more later on, but it's basically going to be 1 sustain, 1 DPS, 2 supports, right? This is going to be the golden standard. Everybody can run this, and this is the easiest to build, because fundamentally, by order of difficulty when it comes to building, your DPS is going to be the hardest, followed by your supports, followed by your sustain. Okay, your supports and sustain, they're both kind of easy to build, right? So don't over diversify when it comes to building on different units. Just focus on your team of 4 at the start. If you want to try other units, sure, but just try to stick to that core few. And sustain is extremely important. You cannot play honkaistarrail without a sustain. This is not Genshin, you can just dodge everything. You honkaistarrail, you absolutely need a sustain, because you're definitely going to take damage. Right? You're not going to be zero cycling or just take no damage at the start of the game. You absolutely must have a sustain. So that's going to be the basic team building, which I'll touch on a little bit more later. 8th tip, do not save stamina. Now this is a pretty important tip, I would say, and I don't think a lot of players actually even know about this when we start the game, is that players might have the mentality to hoard their Trailblaze Power, right? Their little stamina potions. This is not good, because the faster you level up, the more daily jades you get, because this is tied to your equilibrium level, which is level 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 65. You get upgraded equilibrium levels, and the higher equilibrium level gets, the more rewards you get from your dailies as well as the simulated universe weeklies. You get more of this, so it doesn't make sense for you to just hoard and take an even longer time to get to as high of a level as possible. Not to mention, the faster you level up, the faster you unlock all of your trace levels, your cavern levels, your ascension levels, your echoes of war levels. They're all tied to your equilibrium level. So the higher you get your equilibrium level, the more stamina efficient it gets for you to start farming these domains, right? So that's why don't really save your stamina. Just whenever you spend it, when you have the time, just spend everything. Number 9, reset checklist. This is not really so much of a tip, but just to like a little reminder, we do have Simulated Universe refresh every single week. We also have MOC/Pure Fusion refresh, Forgotten Horse Shop, Embers Exchange, all that kind of stuff. They always have some sort of refresh, so just keep in mind to check all these companies. You see like 3 days remaining, 2 days remaining, 1 week remaining. Just make sure to clear some of those things, especially like your free summons, right, and your balls and all this. Just keep them down, and you don't really want to waste all these kind of free resources because they're extremely available. And lastly, for our tip number 10, join Pokke's Village, right? We have a very active community talking about Honkai on a daily basis, and yeah, I also stream this game quite a lot. And if you guys want to ask me about any sort of questions, feel free to hop onto Pokke's Village, right? We're currently at 17,000 members. We're growing, we're thriving, and yeah, it's a good tip. Chat, it's a good tip. It's genuinely a good tip. The new players are gonna love this, right? New players, this changes everything for the new players, right? So that's gonna be that. All right, now moving on to basic team building. These 4 units, they are a must build. It doesn't matter what you get. It doesn't matter who you get in the beginning. These 4 units, they are a must build, right? They're all free. Doctor Ratio is still one of the best E0 S0 MOC DPS in our time. Natasha, she has the easiest time being a sustain in the early game. You don't have to raise her all the way to the max, but you absolutely need to raise her if you want to progress, right? Comparing March 7th to your Natasha, to your Fire Trailblazer, which you get later on, Natasha is absolutely technically the best sustainer in the early game, assuming you didn't get Baidu or Japart, right? So you definitely need to build her a little bit. Asta, she's pretty much a very universal buffer, and in the start of the game, you pretty much have no Ting Yun, you have no Pela, you have no Bronya. Just build Asta, she's gonna be quite universal. And Herta is gonna be a pure friction MVP later on, so you can run her, especially if you want to clear like mobs, you want to clear like Calyx domain, Herta can also be pretty useful, right? But eventually you're gonna have to build her either way, because she's gonna be super efficient. And all these units, the 4 stars, they are relatively cheaper to raise compared to 5 stars. So it really doesn't cost you that much, right? So all these 4, absolute must build. Then your standard banner 5 stars, right? Your Himiko, Yanqing, Welt, Bailu, Clara, Bronya, and Japart. You're definitely gonna get one of these from the beginner banner. Out of all these units, Bronya, Japart, Bailu, they are gonna be excellent for your early game. Especially since we have an incredible DPS known as Doctor Ratio. So our DPS standard banners like Clara, Welt, Yanqing, and Himiko, their value tend to go down a little bit since we already have an incredibly strong early game DPS. And it doesn't make sense for you guys to build like 2 DPS at the same time, right? You, as I mentioned earlier on, for your team building, you need 1 sustain, 1 DPS, and 2 supports, right? So once you all in on Doctor Ratio, the rest of the stuff you can kind of like, it is what it is. But if you do manage to get like Clara or Well or Yanqing or whatever, I wouldn't say don't build them, but build them based on your needs. If you really want to build them, then you can choose to either build one of these DPS or Doctor Ratio. But I would just want to say in foresight, right, when you go into the end game, Doctor Ratio sees the highest usage out of all these DPSs, right? So that's just something for consideration. So to reduce the amount of like wasted resources, Doctor Ratio is going to be the best way for it, right? Then for your 4-star selector, which is the one that you guys are going to be getting upon the anniversary rewards, for the end game, we're going to need 2 teams, right? We're going to need 1 team for the first half, 1 team for the second half, for both Memory of Chaos as well as Pure Fiction. So Gallagher/Lynx is going to be a new player's best choice because you technically only have Natasha, assuming you didn't get Bailu and Japart, and you're not pulling for Adventure, right? So having a second sustain is absolutely crucial for you to clear Memory of Chaos, right? So Gallagher/Lynx is probably going to be the best pick. All of the other units here, your Yu Kong, your Luca, your Gui Naifen, Hanya, Xueyi, Misha, you can pick them if you really like them, but their use is just not as universal or more as impactful as compared to a sustain like Gallagher and Lynx, especially when you need to build 2 different teams, right? In the early game, you don't really need to care about it that much because you're not going to be using 2 teams until you're really long. You're probably only going to be building a second team probably like 2 to 3 weeks after you play the game, assuming you have been playing the game diligently, right? Probably around there. So don't really have to worry about it that much, but if you want a second sustain, then there's going to be a bit, right? So these units here, you notice they're all supports. They have the most versatility, they have the most longevity, and they can fit with pretty much almost every single DPS. For your 4-star sustains, you don't really need like multiple items. As soon as you get one, you can sustain, that's good enough. And your 4-star DPS, although they are all good in their own rights, right? Your Qingque, your Dan Heng, your Herta, your Gui Naifen, your Sampo, they're all good in their own rights, but eventually they will face the issue of getting power creep. Similar to how 4-star sustains will also face the issue of getting power creep by 5-star sustains. Whereas for 4-star supports, they won't be completely useless because you're gonna need more supports than your DPS and sustains. You only need 1 sustain and you only need 1 DPS, assuming you're not playing DOT or dual DPS, but I don't want to get too complicated, right? So based on the very generic team buildings template, these are going to be pretty useful for you, right? Ting Yun, she's pretty much the best of the lot. She's the 5-star in disguise, energy, battery, damage, attack, speed, absolute much. If you pull Ting Yun, you raise Ting Yun, right? She's an absolute insane unit. Even up to this day, she's absolutely insane. This changes everything. If you have Ting Yun, your account is just infinitely better, right? So this is absolutely insane. You just get Pela. Also really good. We have an AoE defense now. Very skill point positive. Very cheap to raise because you only need to raise her talent and her ultimate, right? But if you guys want to know how to raise Pela, all that kind of stuff, watch my previous video, guys. You can see over here, right? So that's even that. Asta and Hanya, they also have pretty decent islands. They are all speed buffers. Hanya buffs your DPS while Asta buffs your entire team, and they're also pretty cheap to invest, right? Similar to Pela, you just need to raise like their talent and their ultimates and all that kind of stuff, and you're good enough, right? Yu Kong, she's a bit of a niche situation because she's not really exactly that great until you get her Idolin 6, but eventually when you do get her Idolin 6, then she's gonna be pretty useful for some team comps, right? A very niche, very future investment, but if you do get her, just keep note, right? You can potentially use this. Not to say that the other 4 stars, they are completely unusable and you shouldn't build them, but you need to have a priority. You need to set aside a priority on which units to build to let you guys get to the end game as soon as possible, so you can get all of the rewards as soon as possible. So that's why these are going to be more focused on. Then for the 4-star Lightcones, all these 4-star Lightcones, they serve some kind of purpose, and some of them till this day sees use even in the end game, especially for things like Duns, for Good Night and Sleep Well, for Resolution, Day 1 of My Lineup. They are all even used up till this day. So if you do get them, it's going to be really, really good. Now, although I said 4 stars, Mashing Cogs is a 3-star Lightcone, but it's actually very, very versatile with a lot of harmony units. Your team can use this, Hanya can use this, Asa can use this. So honestly, if you do get Mashing Cogs, it is one of the few 3-star Lightcones that you guys should keep in mind. There's also another 3-star Lightcone called Fine Fruit, which gives your team more energy, but not important for new players, right? It's really not important. So this is gonna be some of the Lightcones that if you guys manage to see, do keep an eye out. Previously, I had a very in-depth stamina allocation from level 1 all the way to level 60. If you want to check out that, then do check out my older beginner guide, right? I'm not gonna go super in depth here. I just want to get to the absolute if you just out this playing game 1 week, what do you need, right? So for tracers and ascensions, these are gonna be your main focus. Your levels, your tracers, they are guaranteed progression and it makes everything easier, right? But even though they make everything easier, do not overfarm them, especially in the early game. Same thing for it. You don't want to overfarm or stash a lot of these. You just farm as much as you need. For example, if you want to raise a unit to level 50, you just farm enough credits, enough experience to level 50, and you're good. You don't stash up like millions and millions at the early game because you unlock higher difficulties for more returns based on your Trailblaze Power, right? Later difficulties, for the exact same amount of stamina, you get more. So you do want to store a little bit and just don't overfarm, right? Just farm what you need. They're important, don't overfarm. Credit, Lightcone experience, unit experience, these 3 things, if you absolutely want to, if you want to be really, really sweaty, you can get them from the Overworld and Simulated Universe, right? The mobs, they respawn every single day. Simulated Universe, they respawn every single week for 34 times, but they are very, very, very time consuming if you want to actually farm them, right? So do them at your own pace. If you don't want to do them, that's completely fine, but just know that you can get them for free, right? So if you don't do this, you probably have to use stamina, and stamina is a pretty valuable resource in Honkai, right? So just for consideration. And lastly, like I mentioned just now, for your tracers and ascension, when it comes to whatever units you want to build, DPS is going to have a higher priority than your support and sustain. DPS is the name of the game. It doesn't matter how tanky your sustain is, it doesn't matter how fast your supports are. If your DPS does 0 damage, absolute 0 damage, you're not going to do shit, right? So DPS is going to be the absolute highest priority for all of these. Only after you sort out your DPS, then you can kind of consider all of the supports and sustain and make them. And not to mention, supports and sustain in general, they are a lot easier to raise. You only really just need to make sure that they stay alive, they're fast enough, or they have the skills, some skill develop. But DPS is going to be like, you absolutely need to, right? So that's going to be that for tracers and ascension. Then for your relics, you don't really need to focus on relics because your operation briefing, which is this, it's like a checkbook, there's like a 9-step program, is that it gives you a lot of free shit as long as you clear their checklist, right? It gives you a lot of free 4-star and even 5-star relics, and they are usable till the end game. You don't need to care about subsets at all as a new player, right? So only upon finding the main stats, then you're good to go. You can completely ignore substats because the moment you want to care about substats, that's when you go into the relic rabbit hole or pain, that's what we call it in the endgame, right? Because you could be spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of stamina to find the perfect substats, only for you to not get it. And even if you do get the perfect substats, you need to roll them. So it is absolutely illogical for new players to care about substats right now, as long as you get the right main stats. So for example, your DPS, you want to get your crit main stat, you want to get your speed boots, your attack boots, your elemental damage sphere, your supports, get speed boots, HP stuff. Once you get the main stats, your units will definitely be strong enough to clear whatever the story throws at you in Honkai Star Rail, as long as you get the main stats, right? Don't care about substats, right? The best is to wait for Trailblazer level 60 onwards for guaranteed 2 gold. Once you get to this stage, then you can start considering farming for relics. But even here, you might not need to go all in unless you have built your core team, right? Your core team of 8 units or even more than that for the endgame content, right? So you really don't have to care about relics that much. But when you eventually want to farm relics, if you want to be efficient with your stamina, for Simulated Universe, if you are going to be farming that, you're going to be doing for Roll 7 and Roll 8 because they're the most universal. And then for your Cavern of Corrosion, which is the 4-piece, it's going to be Genius / Wuthering, Hackerspace / Longevous, and Prisoner / Duke, right? These 5 domains, they tend to be the most universal. So pick one. You can read about the effects later on and all that kind of stuff, but these are basically what you need to do. Once again, tracers, way more important than ready. So your stamina in the early game, it absolutely should go into tracers attention. Then a little bit of a rough roadmap. This is, you can kind of just read this for yourself, but my main point is, in the early game, you really don't need to be lost because the game kind of tells you where to go exactly based on like their operational briefing. Just clear the main story, defeat all the stuff they throw at you, and you're gonna be in a pretty good state. After the main story, around level 29 and above, you unlock Xianzhou Luofu, and then you can go into all the other places, and then you get a little bit more freedom. So in the early game, it is quite easy to follow and do exactly what the game tells you to do. So you probably won't really get lost unless you just do something really wrong, right? So at the early game, just follow this roadmap. If you want a more detailed one from level 30 and above, like I mentioned, check out my previous beginner's guide. It is still exactly the same when it comes to stamina efficiency. So that's gonna be that. There is quite a lot of different stores in Honkai StarRail. There's Starlight Exchange, there's Ember Exchange, there's also Herda Shop, Forgotten Hall. So I'll briefly run down what you guys should buy. Number one, for Starlight Exchange, this is the very first shop you will see, right? These tokens, you get them from your gacha pools. After pulling for a gacha, you get a dupe 4-star, you get a 5-star, you get some of this, right? Do not ever buy a 4-star here. Never ever buy. Even if it's Ting Yun, you never ever buy this because you're eventually gonna get them one fine day, right? And it's just absolutely not worth it. Then upon getting 600, this is my personal opinion, get yourself a Bronya Lightcone because it is the best in slot for Bronya and it's a side grade for Sparkle, and it's pretty much usable for every single one of your Harmony Path units. If you don't care for Bronya Signature Lightcone, you could do an alternative, which is to get S5 Past and Future and use that for your Bronya or Sparkle if you really want to go about that way. And then you can save this 600 tokens, which is equivalent to 30 pools for limited units or limited Lightcones. Personally, I really prefer just getting an S1 Bronya, just get it over and done with. It's just very comfy. Afterwards, you either get on Special Pass, or for spenders plus that pools a lot, you could save up and just get an S5 Bronya Lightcone, which is still one of, if not the best and easiest Lightcone to get at S5. Right? Insane damage amplification, energy generation, all that kind of stuff. For your Embers Exchange, priority will be this, right? Special Pass, Standard Pass, absolutely you have to get this too. Absolutely. Tracks of Destiny, this might not seem very important because in the early game, you're gonna get a lot of this. You're gonna get like 40 over 50 over Tracks of Destiny because you don't have enough materials to raise all of your traces. But eventually, if you want to raise multiple teams, you want to experiment with multiple units, you want to build all sorts of different fun things in Honkai StarRail, then you're gonna absolutely need Tracks of Destiny, especially if you want to raise them to beyond level 8 skills for your 5 stars and level 9 skills for your 4 stars, right? So you will eventually find this, and this will be the biggest bottleneck because the only other way you ever get this is through once a week from Simulated Universe, and this 2 times a month from the monthly shop, and sometimes events give you here and there, right? So all the other units, your credits, your experience, your trace materials, is not that important. And if you are free to play or low spender, then you probably won't even have enough to even buy this. So this should be your priority. Lightcone and relic experience is not that useful in the early game because, like I mentioned, your main priority should be raising your units. You don't really care about the other stuff that much, right? So get them on a per need basis in the future. Then moving on to Herda Store. All of these 4 Lightcones, Cruising and Stellar Sea, 4 of Aeon, Texture of Memories, as well as Solitary Healing, they are all really good, but you need to get them to S5. Do not buy multiple copies of Herda's Lightcone. Individually, at S1, they are really just not that great. They are probably even worse than your 4-star Lightcones. But at S5, they do provide a lot of use. They're great value at S5, get based on what you need. So for example, if you manage to get a very good Han unit, like I don't know, like Yanqing, you could choose Cruising and Stellar Sea. If you manage to get, like, for example, like you have a Jingliu, you have like a blade. Actually, you won't get this. Oh, if you're gonna be putting for Jingliu in the future, when Jingliu better reruns, you could consider getting this for Jingliu, and you don't want to get a Signature Lightcone. Then if you have like Aventurine, all that kind of stuff, you can get this Solitary Healing for maybe you could use for Akron, maybe. But at the end of the day, these are all really good options. So really just get them based on what you need. For players pulling for signature Lightcones, so if you already know for a fact you're going to be pulling for Jingliu signature, you know for a fact you're going to be pulling for Archon signature, you know for a fact you're going to be pulling for Aventurine's signature Lightcone, right? All these stuff, then you can consider skipping them. You don't really need Herda's Lightcone. Herda's Lightcone, they are not an upgrade to 4 stars. They are a side grade because their stats, they are not exactly 5-star stats. They are not a 5-star Lightcone equivalent. Treat of them as like a 4.5-star kind of thing, right? Slightly better, but signature Lightcones are definitely going to be a lot better. So if you're going to be putting for signature, you can honestly just skip this and just wait for and see what MrPokke releases. Because right now we only have this 4 paths. In the future, we are very likely going to get more. So stay tuned to find out, right? So they're going to be that. Then for MOC/Pure Fission Store, exact same concept with your Herta store. If you only want to get them to S5. Never ever at S1. But do know that these Lightcones, they can also appear in the gacha pool. So maybe you want to get to S4, then we want to wait for S5. Maybe that's going to be up to you. So some really good free-to-play options. Quid Pro Quo, Past and Future, Final Victor, and The Day the Cosmos Fell. They're all really good choices for your abundance, for your harmony, for your hunt, as well as for your erudition, right? So they're all really good choices. So up to you, right? And same concept, if you're going to be putting for signature Lightcones, so for example, if you're going to be putting for Before Dawn, right now if you join the game, because right now we do have a Jingyuan banner, and if you decide to put for Before Dawn, then you really don't need to care about the Day the Cosmos Fell. Then lastly, your jokes come true. This is from the Pure Fission shop in the future, right? You only ever get this two. Your self-modern resin as well as your relic remains, right? Everything else irrelevant. And lastly, for our spending guide, the order of value, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be Express Pass, followed by Battle Pass, followed by the Honoric Shard from the most expensive pack to the least expensive pack. Do not ever buy anything from the Contract Shop. The Contract Shop is the stuff you see that you can use Honoric Shards, the paid currency, to buy something off. They are never ever worth it. And even the resource supply, it is not worth it unless you refresh more than 5 times a day. If you refresh more than 5 times a day, where your 6 refresh will cost you 150 jades, then it is worth it. But even then, most of the time it's just not worth it. So don't buy anything unless for this specific one. Then lastly, the Battle Pass Lightcone. This too is pretty much the only good options at S5. Today's another peaceful day for erudition and Carve the Moon for harmony, right? So once you decided exact same concept as your Herta store as well as the Pure Fission, you get them to S5. You don't just get one copy and move on to the next, one copy and move on to the next, because at S1 they are really mid, right? They're really mid. So get to S5 as soon as possible and stick to one, right? Both technically they are not really needed. They are decent side grades, but even if you don't have them, it doesn't really affect you at all. So for example, today's another peaceful day. If you don't have this, the Day of Cosmos Power is also an excellent alternative. We have some gacha options like Genius Repose. Then for harmony, you have like Dance, you have Past and Future. So they are decent side grades, but it is not pay to win by any means necessary, right? So that's only that. And then this is gonna be our last slide, which is the Endgame checklist. Hopefully, using this guide, you can reach the end game as fast as humanly possible. But before attempting the end game, which is pretty much Memory of Chaos 12 as well as Pure Fission, do try to make sure that you tick all of these boxes, right, for a smoother playing experience, which is 2 sustain, 1 for each team, because you do need 2 teams, 1 team of 4, and each can solo sustain the entire team. If you're 1 sustain, for example, if you're using like Lynx, you're using Gallagher, but they are not built strong enough to solo sustain, then it means it's time to go back and farm for more tracers, more levels, more equipments, all that kind of stuff, right? You need to go back again. Because if they cannot sustain, it's not going to cut it. Maybe back in the 1.0 days, you could run by with 2 sustains and just like take 20 turns. But nowadays, that is not going to be a thing, right? Because now they have shaved off the amount of cycles needed to 3-star content to only 10 cycles for both halves. So you cannot just run double sustain, and they have to absolutely solo sustain your entire team. So they're going to be that. And then 4 supports, either harmony or utility, but this is going to be pretty easy, right? Your Tingyuan, Pella, Bronya, all that kind of stuff, then depends on what you get. And then 2 to 4 core DPS. You could run more than 2 because even though you only need 2 teams, elements will change. And although elements, you have a lot of different elements, being the right element is going to be very beneficial for new players, but especially because of the weakness break mechanic. Not only do you do more damage on the on element, as well as the toughness bar, which delays the enemy and gives you more room to deal more damage, right? So your units should all be at level 80, your Lightcone should be level 80, and your main tracers, especially for DPS, should be at minimum 888, right? And also your relic main stat should be correct, and hopefully you get some decent subsets as well, since you are going to be tackling the end game, right? So yeah, with that, we have pretty much come to the end of my 2.1 beginner guide for honkaistarrail. If you guys have any further comments, do drop them down in the comment section down below, or in discussions, hop by over to my Discord at discord.gg/Pokke's Village. We have a very active community talking about honkaistarrail on a daily basis, right? If you want to check out my stream, links on twitch.tv/MrPokke, as well as on YouTube. I'll be streaming to both at the same time. Schedule will be updated on Discord every single week, right? So that's all I have for today. Welcome to all the new honkaistarrail players. Hope you guys have an excellent time. Don't sweat about it. It's a really fun game. I've been playing this a very long time. And all the best for Sparkle pools if you're joining right now, and all the best for Archon pools if you're joining later. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.